Networking and marketing made simple is for you, the business owner who has a product, a service, or a message that you believe in. My name is Scott Aaron, and each week we'll take a behind-the-scenes look into the real-world marketing and networking tactics and strategies for getting what you have in front of you to a lot more people. Thanks for spending time with me, and now let's get started. Super excited for you to hear today's amazing episode. But before I jump into that, I have so many people that reach out to me and ask, how do I start a podcast? What do I need to do? And what you guys listen to, wherever you're listening to this from, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, in my opinion, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. It's one of those things where I jumped into it because it has everything that I needed in one place. And that's what I loved about it. The tools that allow you to record and then edit your podcast from your phone or your computer, which is so accessible. But also, when you actually host your podcast on Anchor like I do, you can distribute that podcast on all the listening platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, all the different big ones that people are listening to. It's all from here. And it's everything that you need to make a podcast in one place. And the other great thing is, and why I always suggest it to people, it's absolutely free. And this is the easiest thing to do. All you have to do is download the Anchor app on Apple or on your Android, or go to anchor.fm. And that's how you get started. It's that simple. So if you have a message, if you have something really important you want to share, getting your podcast out on the anchor.fm platform will get you there. And not even will get you there, you'll be amazed at what could happen. So enjoy today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Nancy and
Scott here.
And today we're going to chat about a subject. So, little behind the scenes. Every morning, Scott and I have kind of a routine. We wake up, we kind of get ready for the day. We take the dogs out and we work out before breakfast. And I always love to throw some random topics out at him. And sometimes, like this morning, he was like, "Whoa, too deep. My brain's not awake yet. Let's pivot to the next."
It was a business topic, and I just was not I just don't have the mental capacity at that time in the morning. I'm like, I could talk about more like life stuff than I'm just not ready to turn on the business mind yet.
Yeah, because I was like throwing out a what if, and what do you think about this? And what do you think, So we pivoted and we started talking about something interesting. And I just thought, obviously it's February and, that's a month for Valentine's Day couples.
Love month.
Love month. So a lot of people are sharing kind of behind the scenes of different things. And it really had me thinking it would be a great topic, to talk about and obviously discuss our thoughts and share some behind the scenes of, our marriage and our relationship and, kind of chat about it. So Scott doesn't know any of the questions I'm going to ask for him. I've actually kind of prepped some things along with some statistics and stuff like that. So I thank you ahead of time for being so willing to do this and obviously chat around some topics. So, just full transparency, guys, starting back, before Scott and I started dating, I was actually in that camp. I was in that point of my life where I actually was kind of okay, not ever getting married. I kind of thought, you know what, I don't need it. I'm happy with myself. I'd kind of done a lot of work and, I really just didn't have that need for it. And if you guys have ever read the quote, it's actually, it's pretty but it's by Jim Carrey and it's whoever invented marriage was creepy as hell. I love you so much, I'm going to get the government involved so you can't leave. Right. So, I remember seeing a quote like that. I'm like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense, right? Marriage, what's the whole point? It's just such a social norm thing. But really wanted to share with you guys. So our story and what really changed for me. But, so on our first date, Scott, do you remember, our first date first
Of
time we ever,
course. Of course.
obviously had our date, you really said something that changed my whole perspective because I remember kind of coming at you and saying, I don't really know about marriage. Why do people even get married anymore? And you said some things that really stuck with me. Do you remember some of the things that you said?
I mean, I remember some of the things. I know I definitely remember talking about the fact that I love being a team and I love being a unit, being one. So, I grew up in a very tight-knit family, so I love family aspects. So I love how, and you say this, people water each other. So I really believe that two people that are meant to be together, they're better together, as Simon Sinek says, but you become a team,
And Jack Johnson.
and Jack Johnson. Well, you become a team, you become a unit. So it's not, yeah, you're friends, your family, your lovers, your husband and wife, but you're a unit, you're a team. And that's what I love most. And again, when you're not a unit, you're not a team, things kind of go the other way. But I do wholeheartedly believe in, if the ingredients and the recipe is there for a great marriage, it could withstand the test of time.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. Like, for everybody who is watching, imagine this, right? We're sitting outside, it was a beautiful, summer day. Actually, no, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. Our first date was, yeah, around like
It
August.
was a summer evening. It was like
Yeah,
seven
so it was
o'clock
like
at night.
summer evening, and, here I am, coming at Scott with, I don't know, having that kind of attitude, and the thing that really stuck with me after that date and kind of thinking about it later on and really shifting my perspective was the idea of actually coming together with someone, and wanting to be a team, wanting to actually, like, crush life together, I mean, we always joke, like, life is a big game, you know? And the idea of, I think, having a partner along the way and having somebody who kind of, one, checks you when you need to be checked, someone to kind of push you and help you, maybe when you're stuck or needs kind of like that outside perspective. And, obviously having someone along in that journey, has been really impactful. So the other thing too, and the reason why I know that we work so well is, I had done a lot of work on my confidence, right? At the point when we met, I had already been through many long-term relationships. And, I think I lacked the confidence and, security in myself and who I was. And because I had done all that work, by the time we got together, and I said this to you this morning, it was like, I remember we were at the gym one day and I'm like, I think one of the reasons why we're so good together is I know that we're better together because I feel pretty damn awesome by myself. I know that like I still, would have a happy life. I know things would be great and I felt very confident in who I was. But the fact that us together was better, like that's why we're together. And I think when you can really write down, because here's the thing, I mean, I believe that, everyone can be in any like different situation they want to be in, right? Like we're living in a time where social norms are changing, right? There are more people than ever. In fact, yes, being in a committed long-term relationship, I so see the impacts. I see that it can bring so much joy and benefit to our life. But, there's so many people out there that are on a different journey and, they're really forging new and different friendships and building their life in such a different way outside of having the need, to be in a marriage or in a, long-term committed relationship. So that being said, though, I just know that I wrote down everything I wanted in a partner. And I sat down and I remember being at my kitchen table. I'm like, I'm not going to like be with anyone or commit to another relationship if it's not worth, being so like me being by myself and being independent was like freaking awesome and so much fun. But like if being with someone else was going to make that even better and it was going to really like, obviously enhance our life, together and make my life better, then sure, then that was the deciding factor. Cause, remember when I met you too, I was like totally happy with just adopting more animals and like living, as like an animal person who just kept adopting dogs and cats.
A dog and cat mom.
Yeah. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that every relationship plays a part in your life. And I've, you know, I'm twice divorced, so I don't have any regrets.
No regrets.
no regrets in either of those relationships. There was, I learned a lot about myself and emotional maturity, and it prepares you for, the lifelong relationship you were to have. And in between those, there were some long-term relationships, as you forementioned, with you as well. And it's one of those things where you get to an age, or you get to a point in your life where, like you, after I exited my last long-term relationship before we started dating, I was like, I'm cool. You know, I mean, some people may not know, but we have a 10-year-old, not together. It's Nancy's stepson and my son from my previous marriage. And I was like, okay, at the time, I guess I was 37 or 38, right? I was like, yeah, 37, 38. I had my son, I had my family, and I'm like, I'm good. If I end up with someone, I do, and if I don't, I don't. And I remember my sister kind of gave me a pep talk, and she's just, she's like, you're too good of a person to just, not share that with someone. And she goes, there's someone out there, for you. And, just like you said, I think everybody has, I don't want to say a checklist, but I think there are core foundations or qualities and traits that we should all require the other person to have in order to have a great relationship. And again, you have the common ones where, I want someone that's loving and caring and kind and smart and funny, like, which Nancy is all of that. But my number one quality trait that I was looking for was confidence, because I just felt at the place I was at the time in my life, and now I started to gain more confidence in myself, and I didn't want to have to fix anyone. I wanted someone that kind of started to, maybe they were in the process of, or they had done the work on themselves and they're just fully confident. And I mean, even what Nancy just said was, she was, completely, utterly happy with herself, but obviously better together. I was at that same point where I'm like, okay, I'm good with me. I love me. But if I was with someone that was just like me in the same capacity and respect, we would, like Voltron, we would like form like this.
I love that analogy.
We'd form like this mega person, right? So
I am the knee.
right. Arm, connect. So I think for me, it was confidence. And I think that is actually a big thing for people right now. I think there's men and women that are still trying to figure it out, whether they're in their mid to late 30s, even their 40s. There are people that have gotten divorced later in life, and they're trying to figure it. Confidence is a big thing, like loving you, knowing you're perfectly imperfect just the way that you are.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the big thing for me. And amongst all the things that make up Nancy, I think what stood out to me from the get-go was her confidence, and it really shined. And again, that's an attractive feature. I mean, outside of being extremely attractive as a person, people get more attractive the more confident they are. And like, not confident in the sense of like, gloating or, I'm better than everybody, just very confident and firm in her thoughts and her feelings and where she was. And I think there's a big difference between confidence and being overzealous and egotistical. There's a big difference, but her confidence was just shining through. I mean, even on our first date.
Aw. Yeah. And that's so, like, again, behind the scenes for everybody else, like, whew, the thing that needed to happen for us to even be together, I mean, was that shift for me in confidence. Like, I always joke to my sister, like, my sister recently in the last, oh my God, few years at this point, turned 30. And I was like, Emily, just wait until you hit 30. Over 30, you just have these realizations and all these things that you thought mattered and all this physical stuff, like all this stuff that you really like perseverated on is not as important as you think it is, and other people's opinions and things like that. So, probably the biggest work between my last relationship and our relationship was confidence. And I remember a mentor of mine uh told me and it was funny, we were having this conversation and he was like, Nancy, you have so much going for you, you were so smart, there's so many things about you, that would make you an amazing partner. And he was like, if you just worked on your confidence and knowing that about yourself and really just like working on that, you're golden, like literally, like can crush through walls, like you're good. And they used the example that in the movie Pitch Perfect, and it is totally random, but he was like, I actually think like in the movie Pitch Perfect, Fat Amy, the character that plays Fat Amy, he was like, the fact that she is so confident in who she is, looking at her physically, I wouldn't, pick her to be the, first person that I would choose, but her confidence is freaking so attractive. And I'm like, whoa. So I always think of that. I'm like, guys and girls, guys and girls, out there who are listening to this, if you are not confident in who you are, just think about it, right? If you show up to a date and you're like, hey, and it's like, what do you want to order? I don't know. What do you want to order? Like, and you're like, kind of just like touch and go, not really confident in who you are. And like, that shows up so differently than someone who's like, yeah, hey, nice to meet you. And you're sure of certain things, right? You're sure of who you are and your core values. And again, like Scott was saying, what you're looking for in a person. So, if you can do some work on yourself, or if you feel maybe that's something that you need to work on, it's just been monumental, obviously for me. And I know that if I hadn't done that work, we wouldn't be together, right? That number one thing that I worked on is the number one thing, that Scott said,
Yeah.
really drew him to me. So that's pretty cool. All right. So I want to actually dive into, some things that are really kind of unfolding. So obviously, like I mentioned before, social norms are changing. People are really going against the normal. And, in fact, there's groups of single people, who are moving in together, like to mansions. And, there's married couples, choosing not to have kids. They actually call it DINKs, double income, no kids. There's like groups
Never
of
knew that.
yeah, there's a whole like community, like a growing, people just defying social norms, right? People ending marriages and opening new chapters in their lives. But today, right, we are going on, how many years have we been together at this point? Going on about like
We're going on 6 years.
Yep. So we're going on about 6 years together. And, I know we had originally started talking about relationship stuff when we were very new and people were like, oh, you're in the honeymoon phase,
It'll fade away. It'll
yeah, it'll
fizzle out.
fade and things like that. So I want to actually talk about some of the different things with marriage, throw out a couple statistics and just kind of pick your brain on what your thoughts are whenever it comes to some of these numbers. So, the first ones are from divorce.com. So the US has the sixth highest divorce rate in the world, with 40 to 50% of married couples filing for divorce. I'm going to give you a couple more. All right. The United States Census Bureau reports that marriage and divorce rates have dropped from 2009 to 2019. And actually, they've dropped since COVID, right? So people thought that they would increase. They've actually dropped. Usually second or third marriages in the US have a higher divorce rate of 60%, and third marriages about 73%.
Hmm.
So what are your thoughts around some of those numbers? And then obviously I'm your third, marriage, you're my first. But what are your thoughts about those numbers?
I think stats are stats. They're not laws, and it's not like the end all be all. So if you think about it, even like starting with the 73% of third marriages end in divorce, that still means that 27% don't. So we fall into that 27% that's not, because I think everybody knows, as you say, in their jellies, right?
I feel it in my jellies. Yeah.
That I think people are emotionally intelligent enough now that when they're in a relationship and even in a marriage, they know if it's going to last or not. Like, I think everybody knows. And again, there's a recipe to a successful marriage. I really feel that there's core things that make up a very successful marriage. Now, I am surprised that the US is only sixth. I would have thought because of the population of this country. I know that I think in India has more people, China might have more people populace wise. I thought the US would be way higher. So I'm interested. I don't know if you know who's number one, but the fact that the divorce rate has declined since 2009 till today, that makes me feel good, because when you hear the statistic that, half of all marriages end in divorce, again, that's a societal narrative that is planted in everybody's head that either this is or is not going to work. Now, I mean, there's so many things I want to say. So as far as divorce goes, right? It's hard to quantify the difference between a divorce and a long-term relationship. And here's what I mean. A divorce obviously is a legal separation between two people that have been together, right? So there's maybe an exchange of assets, dividing household stuff, kids, this, that, or the other. There are a lot of couples that have been together for a very long time who have never gotten married, but have chosen to break up just from a non-legal paperwork standpoint. And they could have kids, you call these people life partners, right? That the label for that. So I really feel someone that has been in, say, 4, 5, 6 long-term relationships, right? But never got married, and then finally found someone and got married. I really don't feel there is a huge difference. And again, commitment wise, yeah, you're committing to that person for the rest of your life. But I feel there's a lot of people that get into long-term relationships that feel, it's going to go down that road, and 6, 7 years go by and you're like, you know what? I think we've outgrown each other. And that happens within marriages. So I think statistic wise, it can be a little bit skewed because, just because there is no legal paperwork attached to a long-term relationship doesn't mean that the emotional cutting of those ties and the things that go along with ending that kind of relationship, it hurts people the same way. So I think from an emotional standpoint, whether it's a marriage that ends or a long-term relationship that ends, it could hurt just the same. Now, I am a little bit surprised about the last statistic that you shared about the pandemic from 2020 to 2023, because I remember reading somewhere that, everyone felt the divorce rate was going to go up because if you think about, yeah, I mean, what people don't understand is Nancy and I spend literally almost every waking hour together. We've been together for almost 6 years, but if you were to quantify that by a traditional married couple who has a 9 to 5 where they wake up next to each other, have breakfast together, drive separately to work, come home, have dinner, spend some time in the evening, go to bed. That's not how we're in the house all day together every single day.
Work together.
We run our company together. Yeah, everything is done together. Now, you would think that couples that didn't do that were now forced to either have to work from home or quarantine together, whatever it is, it's going to really test the relationship, because it's going to probably open up pathways of conversations and connection that have maybe been buried for a long time. Maybe they started a family and all the energy and effort was poured into the kids and not the two of them, this, that, or the other. But now that I think about it, well, it kind of makes sense, because maybe it allowed those couples to really go back to the grassroots of why they fell in love and why they got married and why they chose to have children. And it, in all theories just thrown out, it probably strengthened the bond between them, because maybe they reconnected and found another layer and level, so to speak, of their relationship. So again, I think stats are stats, and I think you hear the term case by case basis. It comes down to the people. And with marriage, or any relationship for that matter, it's not a one-way street. If a relationship in any capacity, whether it's a friend, family member, significant other, if it's seen as a one-way street, that's a one-way street to a dead end of that relationship ending at some point. In any healthy relationship, it's a two-way street. Everyone is going to have a difference of opinions. There's going to have to be a middle ground met. So I think the more that people individually work on themselves and really understand who they are as a person. And I always recommend to every human being, Nancy and I read this book together, The 5 Love Languages. It's a classic, but it really allows you to dig deeper into what fills your tank. Because for those that are listening or watching this, what most people don't realize, human beings end up trying to fill the cups of others around them based on the way that they would want their cups filled, and not the way that the other person. So again, not going too deep into the book, but there's different ways that we give and receive love, and the way that we receive love from our partner, they may have a different way of receiving that's why they always say communication is key. It's right, really understanding how people work, not only as an individual but as a couple. That's what's going to strengthen the bond. And I think that last stat of the divorce rate going down even further during the pandemic, I guarantee you there's a lot of people that were forced to kind of look in the mirror and reevaluate or reassess, the reason why they fell in love, the reason why they're still married and have kids and are living the life that they are.
Totally. Yeah. No, I mean, I was thinking of that too, because I'm going to go through the phases of marriage too in a second. And, you said it, like reassessing, right? That's even a phase, down the line. And I think showing that gratitude for that other person, actually having to be there with them. I completely agree. So I'm going to go through some additional stats. And Scott did mention, by the way, the book, what's it called again?
The 5 Love Languages.
Yes, the five love languages.
We'll link it in the description.
Yeah, we'll link it in the description. But that book, totally a game changer, because once you find out, obviously, how your partner, receives love and gives love and all that good stuff, you can obviously start to really nurture that relationship that much more. So totally agree. So I'm going to go through a couple other stats. Let's see. Average length of marriage is 8.2 years. Higher your education, the lower the divorce rate. That was interesting.
Wait, higher the education, the lower the divorce rate. So the
Correct.
more educated someone is, the least likely they're going to get divorced.
The lower, yeah, the chance. Yep.
So the fact that I went to 3 colleges, does that give us a really, really good chance, even though I only got 1 degree?
Yeah. Yes. I think, yeah, it actually says something about that on there. No, yeah, no, it's interesting because, yeah, it says bachelor's degree, which you got your bachelor's, right?
Yeah, in HR.
Yeah. So in HR, that's random.
I know.
So bachelor's, it's like 14 in every 1,000, and then master's is like 12 in every 1,000. So, I mean, pretty interesting.
You're saying everyone should shoot for that bachelor's degree is what you're saying.
Yeah, or at least the master's. Yeah. As far as divorce rate. So the other rates I pulled up here, so this is from flingorlove.com. The marriage rate. Okay. So this is just talking about people actually getting married. So the marriage rate in the US, okay, yeah. So it says the marriage rate is 5.1 per 1,000 people, which is down 6 per 1,000. It says the marriage rate is the lowest today since the US government began keeping records in 1867. Approximately 80% of US households were married couples 70 years ago, compared to 49% of married couples today. So marriage in general, right? Like people actually getting married, that's dropping. Among unmarried adults, 58% say they wish to get married in the future, 27% aren't sure, and 14% say they don't want to get married. Among unmarried adults who want to get married someday, 9% say they just haven't found the right partner. 41% state not being financially stable as the main reason they are unmarried. And the average age of marriage is now over 30, which is actually between like 33 to 34 in some cases. So any thoughts on those stats on the marriage rate?
Yeah, well, again, none of this surprises me, and I would say, because I think the woke society that we live in now, I think people are becoming more independent thinkers, and I feel are less impacted by societal beliefs. I think people are thinking more independently and saying, you know what? I don't have to get married. I don't have to have kids. I don't have to, do this, that, or the other. I think people are just kind of beating to their own drum. So I'm not really surprised, but I would say, in respect to the two different things that you said, one, not finding the right person, and money. You and I have talked at length about people settling and how they feel they're at a certain age. I'm just going to close my eyes, spin a wheel, and whoever it lands on, that's going to be the person. But you and I have also talked about how we both agree that there are so many, an overabundance of wonderful women out there, and a very small pool of
Good
great
guys.
guys. And I'm going to turn this back to you in a second, because I want the female perspective on this. Now, again, I know I'm not like most guys. I'm not tooting my own horn.
Yeah, you're a unicorn.
I'm just built differently. And I think that goes back to, obviously, the people that you're raised by and the environment that you're in. And I think I appreciate my emotional connection to myself and other people more now than I did when I was younger. It wasn't cool to be like emotional and kind of feminine energy. I was always friend zoned all the time.
Yeah.
But I think in respect to settling, like, because they haven't found the right partner, I understand it's really hard. And as you get older, it becomes more difficult. But I think love doesn't know age, meaning you may meet that person when you're 30, you may meet that person when you're 40 or 45 or 50, and you just have to appreciate whatever journey that is. And I 100% agree. If you should never settle, you should never ever settle, because it's a recipe for disaster. You should always do your due diligence and test the waters, see what's out there. And it's so cliche, but when you know. I mean, you really know. When it took Nancy and I 3 dates, not that we did not have a bad first or second date. They weren't bad, because there wouldn't have been a second date, there wouldn't have been a third date. But it really took that third date for us, which the time span between our first and third date was almost 3 months. Our first date was like towards the middle of August, but we really didn't connect until the mid-November. So there was a big disparity between our first and third dates. But that was like when we realized our walls were down, we were truly being who we were, and we realized there was something really deep, meaningful, and special there. In regards to money, money is an interesting thing, because it's people say it's the root of all evil, but I believe that money, I mean, there's an overabundance of money out there. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, there is so much money circulating out there. Most of the issues that people have in regards to money go back to the environment that they grew up in, right? If you are raised in an abundant mindset family, not saying that you're wealthy and you have a butler and a cook and a chef and all that stuff, but if you're never fed, I was always fed to work hard, right? Work hard, do good work, um, be mindful of people, be kind, be generous, be grateful. And it was never like, having a negative connotation around money. There was no, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. I mean, I didn't have to get a job when I was in high school, but I was watching what my parents were doing. My mom was, working in sales when she didn't have to. My dad was running his companies, and I kind of followed suit. Sophomore year, I got my first job. I was 15 years old. So I learned that right away. So I think a lot of the issues that revolve around money, it's not more so the jobs that certain people have. Obviously, that may have something to do with it depending upon the household income. But I think the more deeper rooted aspect of it is really going back to your relationship with money based on what you were taught about it. And I know for you, your relationship with money and how you grew up was much different than me. And you've had to do a lot of work, and it's in the last 10 years
Yep.
on your relationship with money. And I'm not saying that I played a prominent role in that,
No,
but
you did.
I
Yeah.
definitely, my relationship with money and my prosperity consciousness definitely bled onto you and you started to get it, and anyone can get it at any point. So I just want to kind of turn it back to you first and go back before we go forward.
Well, even before we go back, I just want to stop there because I think for anybody watching, again, us, we like to be pretty transparent and open about everything. And I just wanted to thank you because, reading that statistic for me, right, that a lot of people actually don't put themselves out there because they don't think they're in a financial place or they don't feel like they have it all together. Well, it really like hits me home because when we met, right here I am, had gotten out of a long-term relationship. I was juggling a mortgage, my student loans, starting a new business, right? Trying to get that going. I was renting out rooms in my house. I was scrapping, I was scrapping to get by. I mean, I had credit card debt that I had taken out to start the business, different things like that. And so I was in a really vulnerable and raw place financially. And I was so insecure about it. And I remember that I just felt so sick about it. And we talked about it. It was like, holy shit. Like, I remember, like, I mean, I outwardly said, like, look, I am really scared. I'm really frustrated. I'm really concerned. Like, I just, and me being so independent, my whole life, right? It's like, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. But like, here's the thing. I got it, meaning like I will take care of my bills and I will handle my shit, but having you as a partner that I could actually communicate that to and tell you how frustrated I was and what I was working on and things like that, was everything. And having your support and not your judgment, on where I was and what I was working through was, I mean, honestly, I appreciate it. I don't think I ever thank you for it, but like, I thank you
You
so
do.
much
You do.
because like, I mean, the other thing is too, I mean, for anyone who's watching too, I mean, your journey, right? Sharing your rawness, your realness about going through everything that you did. I mean, you filed for bankruptcy. How many years? That was like 3 years before we met, I think.
Almost 7 years ago.
Yeah. So, Scott's history in the health and wellness, owning multiple gyms, having millions of dollars to like having nothing, and then literally working your ass off, to get to where, you are. And, us coming together. And, again, another full transparency thing is, in the last, God, couple years, I'm now debt free. I paid off all my student loans. I paid off every debt, that I had. And I got there, but like your support and you're just like, being able to talk about it with you and be open and kind of let my like wounds kind of like air out and say, look, this is what I feel really shitty about right now. I'm going to get it together, but like, here's my journey right now, was epically important, in our journey, obviously together, but in everything that we do. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. And I will
Yeah,
say this, that, you still helped me because I I still had to let go of certain things when it came to money because I would always voice to you, I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders because I
yeah,
always felt like I got to keep selling my coaching. I got to keep selling my consulting. And it wasn't until we kind of put our heads together and say, you know what, let's reevaluate the structure of our business and our company and how we're running it. So it's more running on the traditional way that a business runs, where there's leveraged income, there's reoccurring revenue coming into the business, where we're not just having active income all the time. And that was a big change for me because, up until the last 2 years, since 1999 until 2021, right? Those 22 years,
yeah,
I was basically succeeding off of active income, meaning trading time for dollars, whether it was me personal training someone or doing nutritional counseling or teaching someone LinkedIn or doing a speaking event. That's but the aspect of the leveraged income side and creating the programs that we have now, have been a game changer. So, and I'll never forget, when I had the talk with your mom, asking her for her blessing and asking your hand in marriage. I mean, she said yes right away, but she just said, you got to just promise me one thing, you'll take care of my daughter. And again, I mean, that was without a doubt, one of the big things that bonds two people together is feeling number one, cared for, and B, taken care of. And that's the thing. Like, we take care of each other because it's not so much, yeah, I'll financially support her. I'm going to be her sugar daddy. Like, it wasn't that. It was like just
It's like,
really,
let's figure this out.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was taking care of that person,
Mm.
whether it's from an emotional standpoint, whether it's from a physical standpoint. When Nancy had her cancer surgery a year and a half ago, like, that was a new thing for me because, seeing your partner not being able to stand up straight for like 7 days and having to wash them. And I mean, it's no, I mean, you
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
you learn new ways of caring for people. And then obviously, the financial aspect of our relationship, we care for each other because we grow our business together. So I think there's so many different layers of that. And man, woman, whatever, everybody wants to feel cared for,
Yeah.
but also as human beings, we love caring for other people. And I think that's what really also helps building a strong bond between two people.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, the openness and transparency. I mean, if you can't talk to your partner about what is hurting you on the inside, I mean, the other thing that I wanted to mention is, I was really a very independent person. I wanted to do everything myself. I didn't want any help. I didn't want any support. I didn't talk about my emotions. And, that's one thing you really had it out with me. You were like, you need to talk to me.
What do
You
I
need
what do I
to,
always say? What do I say to you?
speak your truth.
Speak your truth.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I would let things bottle up. I would, do that whole thing where I bottle, and then I go, bah, or I'd be like so sad or, upset. And like, that's not fair to you if you don't know what's going on and it's not helpful for me. So I think that was a big, big growth for me. I think
And
also during.
I can't bottle up anymore. Like, I'm always in the moment. So if something is annoying me or pissing me off, I say it right away. But like, not
Yeah.
yelling or screaming. It's just
Yeah.
I live so presently now that I need to work through certain aspects, whether it's life or business, whatever it is. I have to talk about right then and there,
Yeah.
or it'll get stuff down, which I did when I was younger, and I'm not
Yeah.
going to do that anymore.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, you've definitely helped me with that as well. And I mean, that I think quite honestly has been huge. I mean, for people out there who are like, oh, what advice would you give? Whatever. It's like, I think like communication, just flat out being open, like no passive aggressive bullshit. Like,
Therapy. I mean, you and
well,
I have been
yeah,
going to
yeah.
therapy for years individually. We've done couples therapy, and everyone has
Yeah.
such a negative connotation about that.
It
Like,
was ridiculous.
it's
Yeah.
unbelievably helpful
Yeah.
having a third party that can have that 10,000-foot view on you as an individual. Because
Yeah.
again, as a person, we're so in our own way, in our own head about certain things that we can't see, you know, up from down. Even as a couple, right?
Yeah.
So when you have that third party there that's kind of just examining how the two people are interacting, or giving you some sound advice,
Yeah.
it helps you to kind of progress through, not only as a person but as a couple. So, you know, I feel like, there's a lot of people that, maybe will hire a relationship coach or a life coach. Like, I'm not saying that they're
Yeah.
not qualified, right? But nothing beats finding a good old therapist that can really help you with certain aspects. And I can really attribute, when Nancy got me, I was becoming the best version of myself. I had been,
Yeah.
at the time that Nancy and I started dating, I had been in and out of therapy for 5 years at that point. And I think I was still seeing my therapist when Nancy and I first started dating. And it wasn't, she didn't think that was weird because she had been seeing a therapist as well. And I really feel, if something is really pulling at you, and you're at a crossroad in your relationship where the communication style is maybe getting disconjointed, and you're not hearing each other, like that could mean that, you need to just take a step back, get some sound advice from someone else to kind of work through whatever bump in the road there is, or whatever communication style or kink is there that's not allowing the communication and relationship to flow.
Yeah, well, I even think proactively, right? Like, nothing's wrong. It's like, like you don't have to, like if somebody recommends in the relationship, hey, I think we should go to therapy, or I think we should go to a couples counselor or something like that. It's like, I want to break that stigma of, it's because there's something wrong too, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
think
we've had sessions with our therapist when nothing was wrong, everything was right, but we wanted some advice about a potential situation and
Yeah.
how we could handle it,
Like navigating it and stuff like that.
getting
Yeah.
ahead of it.
So yeah. So, I mean, again, I think it's just like always, in my opinion, always a good idea. But again, it doesn't have to be something that you've got to be like, oh, well, if we go to therapy, that means there's something wrong or we're failing or we're not, I think if you go in there with the right mindset, which is look, like, it's totally normal. It's completely fine. And why not? If you want to strengthen your relationship, right? Every relationship, has tough points of where, there could be things that are weighing on your heart or communication blockages or things that you need to get through, or, just things that you got to deal with in life. It's okay, So I think that's another thing. I mean, communication's huge, and also, seeing help, whenever you might need it.
Well, I know we went on a tangent, but I want to go rewind the tape about
Yeah.
10 minutes when we were talking about um the pool of men versus the pool of women and settling,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So just
Well,
kind of riff on that a little bit, because there's you and I see more and more great, wonderful single women out there that just can't, they're on maybe a self-discovery journey or whatever it is, but like, what's your thoughts, opinions, and feelings on the pool of women compared to the pool of men?
yeah. So I was looking for the statistic. I actually can't find it right now, but the statistic that I had found earlier was over 60, I think it was like over 60 something percent of women are the ones that actually file for divorce. And it was only like 35% of like men do. And the reason why, obviously there's infidelity, there's other things, but in most cases, it's because their significant other, their husband, whatever, was not supporting them emotionally, right? They were not being empathetic and meeting with them, with that. I think that's so interesting. And I actually think there's a book. I'm not sure if it's on my shelf right now or whatever, but it's the Men Are From Mars, Women Are
Mars,
From
women are from
Venus.
Venus.
Yeah. So again, Scott's a very different guy. And again, I'm so grateful that, we found each other when we did, because we have done so much work on ourselves, because you're such a kind and loving and caring person. I mean, I honestly thought it was like a hoax at first. I'm like, what is this guy hiding? Like, what is the deal? Because I mean, you really were just like so incredibly sweet and thoughtful. And I'm like, seriously, what's the catch? But the thing is there are a lot of, there's a big disparity, between men and women and what they need, right? In a relationship. And there's a lot of things that surface, because I really do wholeheartedly believe that men and women are like different creatures, right? We're like totally different beings. Like I could be thinking of all these different things and going down this rabbit hole about all this emotional stuff. And you could be like, nope, just totally on the surface, not overthinking anything and having a total, different perspective on something. So, I just think that alone, that a lot of people, you know, a lot of men, I will just, say that uh, don't know a lot about the differences. And I think don't know a lot about, and you mentioned it, the 5 love languages, like knowing
Yeah.
what their partner needs, doing different things that could help out your partner, right? Like I know a common complaint I hear all the time is, oh, he didn't do this, or he, didn't do all the dishes, or didn't take out the trash, or didn't do whatever. And like, it's funny because even my brother told me, he was like, hey, you want to know the secret to a happy marriage? He was like, assign jobs. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, know who's responsible for what. He's like, I take out the trash. That's my job. So meaning if the trash gets a little bit, to the top, that's me, right? That's like my responsibility. If the dishes after dinner, it's whoever did the dishes, whoever didn't cook the dinner or whatever, does the dishes. So there's basically like job set up. And then that way it's a little more clear cut. Because here's the other thing, and I think this was kind of brilliant, because I think people have different thresholds, right? I joked about it with you, like with laundry, right? We haven't officially assigned laundry as a job, but your threshold is probably a little bit shorter, like meaning you're going to be like, all right, I'm going to throw some laundry in,
I
than
mean, my
mine.
my threshold for dishes, trash, and laundry is very short, so
Yes, is
it's
very short.
constantly getting done.
Yeah, so it's always getting done. And honestly, like, I mean, again, if you keep up with things and like you dirty the dish, you do it, or you put it in the dishwasher right away, like, those things all come into play. But I do feel like a lot of times, it is looked at like the men sometimes come across as lazy, or the men stop caring, or the men aren't empathetic, right? To what women need. I think that's like, a common complaint.
Right. You're doing nothing, I'm doing everything, but it brings up the question, have you voiced what you would like the other person to do?
Correct. Like, I think that's huge. And again, we go back to communication,
Yeah, but
right?
men and women, Mars and Venus aside, no one's a mind reader. I mean, well,
Yeah.
some people are empaths or whatever, but
Yeah.
that's you can't assume anything in a relationship if you don't say it. Like, and I mean, we communicate like, I'll cook dinner and I'll say, hey, can you get the dishes? Or, you cook dinner, I'll immediately start doing the dishes. You'll say, hey, I left the trash out, in the entryway. Can you go take it out? Laundry, I typically do the laundry,
And
put
I
in the
fold it.
baskets, and Nancy
Yeah.
folds. So we have our role in that. So because my office where I am is by the laundry room, so it's really easy for me to just run in there, throw laundry and switch it over. I'll bring the baskets up, I'll put them in the bedroom, and then I'll walk into the bedroom later, and Nancy's either A, folding, or B, she's done.
Yeah.
We call it our folding party. So again, it goes back to communication. And
Yeah.
it's really funny because I remember we used to do these Sunday night chats, and we always talked about like bringing them back up again, but Nancy and I are just very protective of our weekends, and so we like to relax most of the time. But we're here to say that this honeymoon phase that people classify new relationships, you can continue to strengthen your relationship, whether you're married, not married, kids, no kids, whatever it is. It's really a matter of how much and how important is that other person to you, because if they are of the utmost importance, which they should be, because that's why you're with them, you should do whatever it takes to continue to build the foundations of that relationship. And Nancy and I, when we do our goal board every year, we put relationship stuff like
Yeah.
we both love playing video games, so we downloaded a video game that's actually for couples that we play.
It's so cute. It's called It Takes Two.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
called It
It's
Takes
so cute.
Two. It's like a teamwork type game, husband and wife. But we also love board games. So whether it's playing Monopoly with Taylor, which he loves to crush us at,
And
or
Scrabble. We
or
play Scrabble.
Scrabble,
Yeah.
Nancy and I just playing Scrabble. Like again, you find things that really bond you, and relationships evolve just like life evolves, but you have to be open to all of that. And going back, communication, not stuffing your feelings, being open and honest with your partner. And, Nancy helped me through, a personal situation that I was going through. She was making me aware of certain things that were triggering emotional things in me, and states that I was in. And I am so appreciative of, because I feel so much better. It's like almost like a weight off my shoulder, because I feel, since we had this open conversation, I am more myself all the time, not just at certain times. And it was, and intuitively I knew I was like, certain things were triggering me and I was feeling a certain way, but again, I was stuffing it. But when Nancy kind of brought it to the surface and we talked through it, it's like a sigh of relief. And I feel so at peace and so relaxed and so just like chill, when there were certain situations that would come up and I would be just totally on edge. And I just like, would just like, just have minor freakouts, and then like, I'm like, why? Like, it's just not a big deal. So
Yeah.
and that's the sign of a healthy relationship, when you let the other person know, like, hey, I'm noticing this, you got to check yourself, turn the mirror around. And that's what two people that love and care deeply about each other, that's what you do for each other.
Totally. So, I was going to go through the different phases of marriage. Actually, maybe we can talk about that another time. You guys can even share in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in, because I think that's pretty interesting, like the different phases of a marriage. But no, I just wanted to thank you for jumping on with me and, really sharing your perspective, because, I know, again, you've helped me in so many different ways. And I know we've grown together in so many different ways. And, I'm just really super grateful for you and, very present, I think, in our relationship and just appreciate, all that we have. And, we've been through a lot. I think in the short time period that we've been together in the last 6 years, right? We've been through more than I think a lot of people, could be through in even 12 and 15 and plus years, with me going through cancer, us having to bob and weave with different, situations and, building our business together, right? How many people can say that they actually work 24/7 with their spouse, which again, I think is something very special. So lots of cool stuff. I think that we could kind of revisit at another time, but thank you very much. And anything else you want to kind of leave us with?
Well, no, I love you very much. And I always appreciate these conversations. And the goal of these conversations not only is for us to communicate to each other, but for whoever's watching and listening to kind of, maybe inspire or motivate you to take a different look at your relationship and maybe have a nice conversation with your partner and just kind of reopen that door of communication and really, if you ever read the book Better Together is Better by Simon Sinek, it's just a wonderful reminder that as human beings, we make each other better. We water each other, as Nancy always reminds me. And I just appreciate everything that you've done for me and Taylor, our business, our life, because again, as you always say, we both would be really happy just on our own, but our
Yeah,
life would not be anywhere close to where it would be, and is going if we weren't together. So I just really
100%.
appreciate and love you very much.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. You guys share in the comments below any big takeaways. Like I said, we'll share the link for a couple of the books that we mentioned, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much again for checking out today's episode. And if you are listening through iTunes, Spotify, wherever you are, please leave me a rating and review. Let me know what you loved, what you would like to see improved, or ideas you have for future episodes. And if you are interested in taking your business to the next level, don't hesitate to go to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me, where I can learn more about you, your business, what you're struggling with, and how we can work together. And don't forget to check out my wife, Nancy, and mine, our free community on Facebook called LinkedIn Leads for Life. We would love to see you in there. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you everyone for your support. Grateful for each and every one of you.